The next individual that I want to call up is Ruby. And Ruby lives in District 4. She's not 18, so she can't run for public office. But why don't you sit next to your mentor, your new mentor, Mr. Kinsey, because I can see Ruby in leadership at the supervisorial level, at a ton of other levels at some point.
Absolutely.
So Ruby's on the youth commission. She's in the 8th grade, was recently accepted, and will be going to the Branson School next fall. And so Ruby, tell us a little bit about yourself, and also, some of the work that you're doing as it relates to race, ethnicity, and inequities.
So I just want to start out with thanking Marin First Fine for allowing youth to have a voice here. So often youth aren't given the ability to speak. They aren't given the opportunity to learn from what's been said before. And so that creates disparities. It makes it difficult to move forward when you don't know what you're going upon. And so, as it was formally said, I'm Ruby Clark. I'm an 8th grader at West Marin School, and next year I'm going to be going to Branson. And I, along with Bilal, we're co-chairs of the Marin County Youth Commission. So what is the Marin County Youth Commission? You're probably wondering. So the Marin County Youth Commission, also known as MCYC, is a group of 20 dedicated youth, aged 12 to 23, who are dedicated with an integral voice of trying to make the community better. We have 2 representatives from each of the 5 districts. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4. I'm one of the representatives for District 4. And then we have 10 other committee members. And those members, we try and find voices of those who are marginalized in their community. We try and find voices of LGBT youth, voices of youth of color, youth who live in rural communities and often are found in government and political systems. We try and find youth who are marginalized in a way where they feel as though they can't find a way to make change in their community. Because if youth can't make a change in their community when they're young, they won't have the chance, they won't have the voice, they won't have the idea to make change when they're older. And so, thank you. Okay, so, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so, one of the things that we do each year in order to make sure that we can understand what everyone in the commission has gone through, understand what we don't have representation from, is at the beginning of the year we have 8 hours. We have a 2-day social justice retreat. And Deborah is one of the hosts of this. And one of the things that we learn about is we learn about white privilege. We learn about systemic disenfranchisement. We learn about racism, classism, ageism. We learn about how society affects us, how we affect society, and how we all need to work together to affect society collectively and make a good and effective change. So we learn about a lot of the basis things that we need to do in order to form a coalition that can effectively enact any sort of real change. Any sort of real change that can change a community for the better. Any sort of change that isn't just superficial. A change that actually makes differences. It changes the normalizations that every single person thinks of. Because that's what society, that's what government does. Government shapes the people who live in it. And that's the goal of government, to shape and allow people to facilitate their lives in a way that's beneficial. But sometimes government doesn't do that. Sometimes government gives implicit biases to people. Government makes it difficult for people to be who they are, for people to be respected as who they are. And so one of the things is people try and change that. People try and change government to reflect how society is today. And so the Marin County Youth Commission allows youth to do that. We speak with the Board of Supervisors on different topics. We have 3 different subcommittees: alcohol, tobacco, and other drug prevention, educational equity, and food justice. These are all very pertinent issues, not only to Marin County, but to the country and the world as a whole. Because alcohol, tobacco, and other prescription drug use in Marin is way higher than it should be. It's way higher than it is in other counties in Marin County, in California, sorry. And we have a huge educational disparity. If you look at the makeup of different public schools compared to private schools, you can see that there's a visible and visceral disruption. You can see that there's differences between A through G requirements and people who are achieving that in different schools. And then with food justice, you can also see that communities of color, people who are English language learners, they often live in a food desert, but that's also an oasis of alcohol. Like, they live in places where it's a lot easier for them to become distracted from their school. They live in places where it's frankly just not equal, it's not fair. And so, I'm a 2-year member of the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Other Drugs Subcommittee of the Marin County Youth Commission, also known as ATOD. We are in our 2nd year of partnering with the CMCA, or Communities Mobilizing for a Change on Alcohol in Marin County. And we are planning on continuing that partnership next year. Throughout the past 2 years, we have been dedicated to analyzing data and collecting data. We did 103 half-an-hour conversations with individuals representing a wide sector of youth and adults to try and figure out what their goal was and how they thought alcohol affected the community, and if they thought alcohol affected the community. And so what we're trying to do now is we're analyzing the data, and we're trying to figure out a way where we can enact policy that will reduce youth drinking, and we know that that's going to be affected by race, regardless of what sort of policy implementation we decide to choose. So once again, I just want to thank you for giving me and the other youth an opportunity to let our voices be heard, and also to hear your voices.
Great.
Way to go, Ruby.